Okay, karibu everyone. You are all welcome to this discussion about Ubuntu and its place in social work and development. My name once again is Eria Tuyamureba. I'm joining in from Uganda and I am a student of social work at Masters. I'm studying from Makerere University and I am part of this project as the technical person. And today we have someone who is very knowledgeable about Ubuntu, and she'll be sharing her knowledge and her insights about Ubuntu. So could you please introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you. My name's Zena Mabeyo. I'm a senior lecturer at the Institute of Social Work in Tanzania. Yes, I have long-term teaching experience in the field of social work and currently also heading the Department of Psychology at the Institute of Social Work. So I feel privileged and honored to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much for that ample introduction. Let us now dive into our discussion, and our first theme of discussion is about your early understanding of Ubuntu. And the first question I have for you is, how was Ubuntu explained or demonstrated to you as a child while growing up?
Okay. Oh, the Ubuntu, of course, as a philosophy of life in African context, was demonstrated to me as a child through many ways, but the most important way is through living together as an extended family, where we stayed together, we played together, and shared whatever little that we had, not only among ourselves as members of the family, but sometimes with other non-members of the family in case of need. So it was demonstrated really in the pattern of life that we have been exhibiting at home, but sometimes even at school. It was very common for me as a school child going to school, and when I returned back, I could visit a neighbor and could eat there, and there was no problem with that at that particular moment. So that's how Ubuntu was demonstrated to me.
So building on that question is there someone who personified or exemplified Ubuntu for you while you were growing up? Was there a key iconic person who exemplified Ubuntu for you?
I think I would say iconic persons who I identified Ubuntu in my thinking were our parents and our elder parents, grandparents, the way they lived and how they taught us how to live together with the way our parents did. They really exemplified the Ubuntu, not as a technical philosophy, not as a technical academic concept, but as a way of life.
All right, thank you so much for that submission. My next question to you is about your African tongues and cultural practices that depict Ubuntu. And the question I have for you is, what words or concepts for mean Ubuntu or depict Ubuntu in your language from where you are? Could you share some of those plus their meanings?
One of the world that depict Ubuntu in our context, I would say ujamaa itself. As in Tanzania, we have ujamaa, meaning people living together, working together, is one of the concepts that depict Ubuntu, which was it's a philosophy what in Tanzania was initiated by the late Mwalimu Nyerere, our president. That was one of the concepts of Ubuntu. But we also have a concept called Msaragambo, and I have written a book about it. Msaragambo means a way of life in which when people have problems, communities come together, collect their effort together to help this person to solve the problem. It could be, your contribution could be not only monetary, but it could also be in terms of your only physical power, ability to support that particular person. So it's a way of life in rural areas where people come together and work together and help each other to resolve their problems. Saragambo, ujamaa, yes.
All right. Could you also share about, are there any ceremonies besides what you've shared? Are there any ceremonies or proverbs or sayings or artifacts that depict Ubuntu building on what you've submitted?
Okay. One is a proverb which says, kidole kimoja hakivunji chawa, meaning that one finger cannot kill, I mean, a mice, and that's this small insect. One finger cannot, but you need more than one finger, two fingers together to kill that particular little animal. So it means an individual alone cannot solve problems, but it needs the collection of people. And others say, if you want to go far, ukitaka kwenda mbali, nenda na wenzio. If you want to go far, go with others. If you want to go far, go with others. So it means, it still depicts the idea of people living together, people working together. And some people say also, kila mchuma janga hula na ndugu zake. It means every person who picks a problem will have to, will have to face the consequences with the family. So it means if I do something bad, kila mchuma janga hula na nduguze. Whoever that goes to pick up troubles comes back and have to share that trouble with the relatives. It means whenever you leave a person and goes to do something that causes problem, at the end of the day, it is family that will be affected. So family has to be part and parcel of helping people to maybe behave well, live well, because whenever they will pick up problems, it's the family that will come back and face the consequences. So it means there are proverbs that try to tell us that we have to be there for each other. We have to protect each other. We have to bring up people in a manner that does not cause problems, because when they pick up problems, at the end of the day, these problems will affect us as a family.
Thank you so much for that ample submission. And my next question to you is about your Ubuntu in your day-to-day life. And according to the theories of aging by Dr. Ozoma Odere Okeyo from Nigeria and Professor Andrew Nyanguru from Zimbabwe, they emphasized the positive contributions of older adults in building families and the society at large. So could you please share your understanding or your submission in regards to the positive contributions of older adults in building the families and societies in regards to Ubuntu?
I would say that I echo their contribution, and it goes without say that older adults, especially in our African context, I think in the globe at large, have a very significant contribution in building Ubuntu. It's them that inculcate the knowledge about what is valuable in life, especially by insisting on families to be together, to be there for each other, while they also demonstrate the same. Apart from imparting knowledge, sometimes these older persons are always responsible for enforcing compliance. I mean, they enforce adherence to these cultural norms that emphasize on Ubuntu. It's them that are for instance, in our societies, it is them that the chiefs and the king, it's them that whenever a person has done something wrong, will be reported to them and they will issue punishment. So it means they set standards as well as ensure that there is compliance to those standards. But again, sometimes they are also the persons who can, I think they are the ones who foster, they foster these Ubuntu norms. For instance, in our communities, some parents can set rules, for instance, that in the year, you must set aside a day that you should come home together so that we can stay together, have family meetings and so on and so forth. So they play a very vital role in ensuring and in enforcing Ubuntu and the ways of living together. So they are at the center or at the core of Ubuntu.
All right. Thank you so very much for that submission. And our next theme of discussion is Ubuntu in development. And according to Mzee Kenneth Kaunda, he has this about Ubuntu, and he says that the national productivity drive, it must involve a communal approach to all developmental programs. That's according to Mzee Kenneth Kaunda. And this calls for a community, it calls for community and team spirit. So what do you have to say about what Kenneth Kaunda says in regards to Ubuntu?
I am totally supportive of what he's saying regarding the role of the community in development, because we understand that in countries that are impoverished like ours, building development requires not individual efforts, but we really need collective efforts, because with collective efforts, we can reap more. We can reap more outcomes. We can gather more strength, and also the outcomes of the whatever we are doing can trickle down to many people. For instance, now we have known that in countries that are poor, sometimes individual efforts, because the capital is small, it is difficult for the countries to reap. But today we are seeing a lot of efforts that are being done in the countries like ours, where people come together, they even collect money, keep money. For instance, in Tanzania, we have people getting developments through this saving and the lending and saving organizations, because you keep your little money, you can borrow from that. We call them vikoba, we call them SACCOs. It means small scale is SACCOs is it's like a small scale savings and credit organizations. So with the collective effort, it is easy to join power, to even have big capital and be able to benefit more than if an individual person takes individualized efforts to fight poverty. So the role of community effort is more significant in countries that are less developed to help people to come out of development or out of poverty than each individual delving into individual efforts. That will be difficult to realize development.
All right. Thank you so much for that ample submission. And my next topic of discussion is about Ubuntu justice. And Ubuntu justice has principles like deterrence, returnings, replacements, compensation, apology, forgiveness, reconciliation, warnings, and punishments. And my question to you is, how can Ubuntu, these principles of Ubuntu, how can they be used to address inequality, discrimination, or exclusion within communities, societies, and globally?
I say we in our context in our context and also in the global village, we see that there are a lot of challenges that are happening that are amounting to acts of injustice. For instance, we have violation of people's rights. Today we have acts like people failing to get their rights because of, let's say, corruption. Some people becoming corrupt as a result, others lack the justice because of that. So I would like to say that these principles are very good. They can be utilized in enhancing justice, because they will help in pacifying the society. Because, for instance, when you have, you make people who have committed acts of injustice come before those against whom their justice has been denied. and they repent, or they, should I say, they seek for forgiveness, or they show how they can compensate others, maybe by their maybe the whatever they have earned in injustice manner being redistributed back to the community, then it is possible for acts of injustice to be handled. So the principles are very good, especially in countries where we have witnessing a lot, massive acts of injustice, and therefore we can apply those principles to bring the justice to those who are missing it.
Very interesting question, still on Ubuntu justice, and it's about gender justice. And my question to you is, how does Ubuntu interpret gender justice? Is there anything that needs to change, or everything is okay with gender justice as far as Ubuntu interprets it?
In terms of gender justice, I think, of course, there are things that are still going well, but there are things that still need to be done, because with Ubuntu, in terms of gender justice, we are talking about forgiveness and what. But this act sometimes cannot help to solve some of the gender related problems. For instance, we are talking about sexual abuse. When you talk about sexual abuse, it is more than just applying the Ubuntu principles of forgiveness. You need to go a step further, taking very legal actions against the perpetrators of such acts. So much as Ubuntu practices can be applied in certain kinds of problems, but there has to be exceptions in acts where there is a high level of violation of human rights, where you need to have strong interventions that will be legally binding.
Thank you so much. We are now going to our last two themes for this discussion. And the second last theme we have is about the future of Ubuntu. And you know that African Renaissance is a period where African philosophy becomes the main worldview in African gain. And my question to you is, what is required for us to have the African philosophy becoming the main worldview in African gain in regards to the African Renaissance?
I think it is true that this African philosophy can become a good worldview, but to realize that there is a lot that needs to be done, because there are a lot of, should I say, tensions and antagonistic views also regarding what we value and what the world might have valued. So what we need to make this view as a global view, first of all, we need first to popularize the view, because I'm not sure that if Ubuntu is a world view that have penetrated into a lot of academic work. So the most important thing, that if we want to make this become a world view, we have to write more, like what we are doing now. We have to write more about it. We have to document more about it. We have to popularize this, and therefore make it now, start advocating for it through various forums through various global and regional forums. Like now we are talking about, just imagine we are just talking about having a common language, if let's say in Africa, but still it's a problem. Some people, for example, talking about Swahili, but some countries still teach it, some don't, so you still need a long way to make sure that this concept is known, is written about, is popularized, and it is advocated for in various forums, so that it can be bought and become a worldview.
Okay, still building on that. Thank you so much for that submission. Still building on that, my other question to you is, how can the use of Ubuntu be increased in laws, in organizational plans, in policies, in ethics, in curricula and fieldwork manuals? How can the use of Ubuntu be increased in laws, in organizational plans, in policies, in ethics curriculars as well as fieldwork manuals?
Yeah, I think I was trying, like when I was responding to the previous question, is like I was trying to see how to say how Ubuntu can continue to be increased. But I think the most important thing is that, you know, we needed to make sure that this concept becomes, first of all, an agenda in the international forums. For instance, in social work, we have international bodies that accredit, that provide guidelines regarding social work, what it is, what should include. So from the onset, it should be a very important agenda in the international bodies of social work. And after it has become an international agenda in the international forums of social work, then it can be disseminated to other international forums that are non-social work, so that it can be bought as an agenda. And thereafter, it can trickle down to specific countries and specific schools teaching social work. So we needed to have, should I say, a global, to have it being part of the global agenda, part of a global concept that should be enforced as a key issue that needs to be taught. So that's what I think.
So we are now going to dive into Ubuntu globally, and also picking from what you were sharing. Actually, the IFSW and the International Association of Schools of Social Work, they have made Ubuntu, they've recognized Ubuntu to be a major theme of social work. And I think they've done that, but it hasn't been trickled down to other places like you've been sharing. Yes, it has not been trickled down to other non-social work organizations, and yes. So and my other question to you is, building on that entire submission you've shared, is can Ubuntu coexist with Western individualism? Do you think the two philosophies can exist, or they are not really, they can't be existing together?
Even with individualism, the Ubuntu can still exist. We have the Western model of individualism, and we have the African model um, uh, of Ubuntu. But Ubuntu is, I think, to me, it is a philosophy that cuts across, even even within the less communal way of life. If you look at the principles and the core values of Ubuntu, they can still be integrated into the normal life. It's only that they have not been amplified. The art of caring for each other, sharing, even when you are two, you are not in extended family, you need to care for the other person. You need to show the empathy, you need to show the sympathy, you need to reconcile, you need to, so the really values and core values of Ubuntu, if they are amplified, they can also become a very important and core part of life, even in the individualistic kind of life. So I think they can coexist, but the really values have to be amplified. As to
Most Africans in the diaspora, there are many competing values, like we've shared earlier: individualism, capitalism, and many other competing philosophies and values that govern those countries they go to. So how can they keep engaging in Ubuntu, and what are the opportunities and challenges for them to keep engaging in Ubuntu while they're in those countries?
Yeah, actually, I think it is obvious. It is true that sometimes the context where you are can actually act as a barrier towards your engagement in acts that are considered as Ubuntu. We understand that there are various limiting factors in their context. The life itself maybe is very constrained, and the priorities in where they live can limit, but also it's, Ubuntu has a lot of things, including giving and taking, including caring for each other, including accepting to take some responsibilities for others. But sometimes this can be difficult because of the context, because of the cost. So if you are in a diaspora and you are talking about caring for others, does it mean that you have to welcome people to Europe? And when you welcome them, is it possible for you to meet the cost of them coming? So sometimes you are limited by the distance, sometimes you are limited by the context where you can hardly be. But I think there are various ways they still can utilize, because we know that even when you are in a diaspora, you are not living alone. You still have many other colleagues from your own country, land, within the particular country. So the best way, I think, is them to recognize the fact that wherever they are still Africans, and they have their values. So they can demonstrate Ubuntu first by living together as colleagues, as members of one family, as people who recognize, because they can be, of course, collaborating themselves within where they are living, so that they can showcase that they have certain values that are different from what others. But still, from far, they could also see how they could respond and be part. We see, of course, people from diaspora, though they are living far, but they are still contributing into various problems. So they could still see in what extent could them, despite being far from their own countries, how could they be part and parcel of development of their own homelands? With even a little, sometimes it is, we only need something very little to make changes in our own communities. And there are people out there who can do that with very limited, uh, uh, with a very limited constraint as compared to us who are in the country. So they could themselves stay connected, but also when they are staying connected, they can still also stay connected to the people in their homeland by finding out how they can be a part and parcel of the community by responding to or solving various problems that their communities are still facing, so that they can contribute into development, building justice, and so on and so forth.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Zena, for that insightful submission. We are now going to come to the end of our conversation, and my last question to you is, what Ubuntu values and principles would you wish the world to learn from Ubuntu? Could you share some of those Ubuntu values and principles that you want the world to learn from Ubuntu?
The values that I want the world to learn from Ubuntu is that core principle of I am because you are. You see, we are always here because somebody is there. And therefore, we should always be people who are caring, are listening to the voices, are acting on behalf, are standing on behalf of others, that we do not become part of other people's problems, but we become part of other people's solutions, because who we are and what our life will sound like will be more valuable when other people are also benefiting from us. So that's the only principle that I would like to.
Right. Thank you so very much for sharing that that Ubuntu principle of I am because you are. And my last question as we close this up is there any proverb of Ubuntu that you'd wish to share with the world, from specifically from Tanzania where you are, that and what it means as well? Is there any proverb or saying of Ubuntu?
The saying of Ubuntu.
Yes, that you'd wish to live.
Yeah. Normally, the one I said, kidole kimoja hakivunji chawa. Kidole kimoja hakivunji chawa. It means one finger cannot. So we need each other in order to be able to kill a mice.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Zena, for having taken off time to be part of this discussion. And I believe that the rest of the world and anyone else who is very interested in Ubuntu, they are going to learn a lot from the insights you've shared, your experiences you've shared about Ubuntu. And I really appreciate you for having taken off time to be part of this discussion today. And I look forward to having the world learn more about Ubuntu through the sharing of the discussion we've had here today. Thank you so much, and I wish you a very good day.
Thank you, Elia. You too. Wish you all the best.